Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Adumim in Israel. What does it mean for something to be eternal? The word itself has an oddly otherworldly quality, as if it doesn't quite fit in with the normal world of food and annoying people and smartphones. Everything about that normal world speaks of the temporary and the fleeting, things that will fade away with the passage of time and be forgotten. But the eternal means the opposite of all that. It means permanence and timelessness and a quality that seems to be linked to the divine. For this reason, only certain things in reality have come to be known as eternal. It is a title that we use with reverence and awe. Examples of this elite group include the universe or the earth and perhaps the existence of life. We may apply it to abstract concepts such as numbers or equations that seem to have been around long before anyone ever dreamt of their existence. We may attribute eternity to the human soul, since it is difficult to imagine something as timeless as the soul ever vanishing completely. But for those who don't believe in a soul, there is probably nothing eternal about human life. It is just one more thing that will one day be gone and only survive in the memory of a few others until the day comes when they themselves will be gone. The eternal has always been at the core of religious belief. The very idea of a deity speaks of eternity. Gods don't die, almost by definition. But the fact is that they do. Once people stop believing in them, they vanish like the temples that once venerated them. This perhaps is the reason why monotheism caught on so strongly among peoples of the world. The reality of one God seems to be something that defies time. It is above the individual things of the world. It is their creator and their source of being. It is being itself, and if anything is eternal, it is that. The only way to challenge the eternity of God is to deny God's existence. This is not so hard to do, but it does come at a price. It means that nothing is truly eternal and requires us to face our own impermanence in the eye. Some do this without any regret whatsoever, even relishing in the meaninglessness of it all. But others find this possibility dreadful and cannot conceive of a world in which nothing is truly eternal. This is a very human debate, since it speaks of matters that strike at the very core of the mind. When it comes to more earthly things like rocks or life or ideas, the word eternal is used more glibly. We have no problem describing a truth as eternal, just as we may imagine the ocean or a mountain. We know these things are not truly eternal, but that doesn't really matter. What we mean by eternal is that it has been around for an uncountable amount of time and will continue to exist long after we have left this world. This gives us a certain amount of comfort, knowing that some things in life are worthy of this title, even if they also may someday fade. With the physical or mental creations of human beings, things are a bit more hazy. How can any human creation really be eternal? It will either one day be gone, or it wasn't really a human creation at all. Was the eternal truth of love your neighbor as yourself really a creation of the human mind? On the one hand, it obviously was, but on the other, it is much a part of reality as the stars and the numbers. A story or a work of art is human creation, as is a city or a country. These things come and go with the times. All it takes is a little destruction or a lack of interest, and they are a part of history, never to return again. With the digital age, it is as simple as hitting the delete button, and what once was is no longer. When it comes to collective ideas, religions are the closest thing to the eternal in the human arsenal. Those fundamental beliefs which have survived the ravages of the ages have attained a kind of immortality that outlives any individual or even any epoch of civilization. Judaism certainly qualifies for this, since it is probably older than any existing religion. It has been around for over 3,000 years, certainly earning the title of eternal by any human measure. Old in Judaism is not measured in centuries, but in millennia. What happened in the Middle Ages is relatively new by Jewish reckoning. The Bible is old, but it is only the first written stage. The core beliefs go back long before anyone composed a book about them. But there was a time when the most fundamental beliefs of Judaism did not exist, or at least were not known to the wide world. This is indeed hard to swallow, since it harkens back to truly forgotten times. What was the world like when nobody had conceived of the idea of one deity? What was civilization when nobody had ever framed the basic statement, thou shalt not kill? It is almost impossible to imagine life without such ideas, but there was a time when they were not part of the human lexicon. These sorts of things qualify as eternal in the ever-changing domain of human thought. There are other things in Judaism that probably have earned this lofty title. The Torah itself certainly deserves it. Many would include the Jewish people in this selective company, even though they did not exist 4,000 years ago. Then there is the land of Israel. As a place, it is almost as old as the earth. But as a Jewish or Israelite or Hebrew place, it goes back to times when such things were not written down. Of more recent vintage is the city of Jerusalem. While the Israelite origins of this city are traceable within some of the texts of the Bible, it has a certain eternal quality to it that makes it easy to imagine as having been there forever. Looking at the old stones or attempting to decipher some ancient letters on a piece of pottery is enough to evoke timelessness in the mind of almost anyone. This coming Sunday night ushers in the annual celebration of Yom Yirushalayim, or Jerusalem Day. This celebration is a creation of modern Israel. It commemorates certain battles that were fought in Jerusalem during the Six-Day War in 1967. The victory was so unexpected and so complete that yet another day was added to the very exclusive list of annual Jewish celebrations. One of the more common words one hears in describing Jerusalem in the speeches and praises of the day is eternal. If anything has earned the title of an eternal city, it is Jerusalem. It goes back to early biblical times and has always remained in the collective conscience of the Jews. Perhaps even greater than its timelessness is the very fact that the Jews returned to it after a gap of close to 2,000 years. It was largely abandoned by the Jews following its final destruction by the Romans in the 2nd century. Small communities of Jews continued to live there on and off for the next 1,700 years. But the situation was always tenuous. The most recent period of relative scarcity was from the early 17th century until the early 19th century. Hardly any Jews lived there during these 2 centuries, and the city itself was largely a shadow of its former glory. But beneath the sands and amidst the stones, it was always there, waiting patiently for the Jews to return. When they came back in dribs and drabs during the 19th century, it was to a sad-looking town that would have been unrecognizable to the prophets of the Bible. It took another century for a large community of Jews to settle there, but by 1948, there was no denying that the Jews had returned. During the 19 years between the War of Independence and the 1967 war, Jerusalem was divided. This was an uncomfortable period in Jewish and Jerusalem history, which ended abruptly in the Six-Day War. Since then, the political and religious battles that have come to define the city have raged and quieted with an almost steady tenor. Now it is a bustling city with over 1 million inhabitants, bursting at the seams in every direction, including upward. It is a city which speaks of the future, even as it owes its historical allegiance to the past. Perhaps more than any other city in the world, Jerusalem has come to epitomize the ever-growing conflict between the Muslims and the Jews. This conflict itself is just a piece of the even greater conflict brewing between Islam and the rest of the world. There is no denying this conflict any longer, despite the best efforts of Western intellectuals to do just that. It is as undeniable as the takeover of digital technology in our lives. We can insist that we can always go back to the way things were before any of this happened, but we all know that artificial intelligence is as inevitable as the phases of the moon. The same goes for the conflict with Islam. Believing that Islam will be satisfied with a few mosques here and there is as illusionary as world peace. We can be grateful to the jihadists for spelling things out as they really are. This is not about 2 states or the right to wear a veil. Those are political or social takes on the situation that have little to no bearing on what is really happening. The jihadists are not interested in the West Bank or some civil right. They want it all and have a firm belief that they will get it. Western politicians and intellectuals can flatter themselves with their own spin on what is happening, but it certainly does nothing to fool the jihadists. It only convinces them that the West is desperate for any sort of compromise, even if it means signing their own death warrant. Those politicians and those intellectuals are not the future warriors in this battle. They are nothing more than obstacles obscuring the true nature of what is at stake. The battle will not be fought in France or England. They have already surrendered, whether they admit it or not. It will not even be fought in America, though America will probably play a large part in what happens. It will be fought in Israel and in Jerusalem. This is where this epic and eternal clash will play out. The future of Jerusalem is the microcosm of the future of the world. If the Jews continue to survive and thrive in Israel and Jerusalem, the world will continue to have a steady beacon of hope against the oncoming tidal wave of Islam. If that does not happen, the world is in for a rude awakening with only two choices: join or die. Jerusalem is truly an eternal city, and this conflict is only the latest phase of its eternity. It seems almost inevitable that it should play this pivotal role in the future of civilization. Why did the Jews return there after almost 2,000 years under the most improbable of events, if not for this purpose? Jerusalem, with all its traffic and its noise, with its bars and its museums, is once again at the center of the world. It has awoken from an almost endless slumber to once again affirm its true eternity. Shabbat Shalom.